They don't kill you because you're a fascist. They call you a fascist so they can kill you. They have no human rights. It's like calling someone a Nazi or a fascist. It's a way to just dehumanize them. You can do whatever to them. You can assault them. It's funny to them. They laugh about it.
So, were you once in Antifa?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't call myself like Antifa's strongest soldier or like, I'm going to like giant Antifa conspiracy meetings. But it's like, I think that as far as like May Day is like a holiday in Seattle where Antifa often shows a presence. So I've participated in that, whether it's like protests or marches, dressed in all black, wearing a mask. And, generally like, just before 2020 into the 2020, like George Floyd protests, the Chaz chop happened here. And in recent years, it's like, it's soured in my mind, so less interested in it.
Is Antifa just an idea, or is it an actual organization?
Yeah, I think that, it's not one or the other. It's like, I don't have a membership card. If there's going to be a protest or an event, then I'm just showing up on my own, right? Like during CHOP, in the Capitol Hill area, the autonomous zone that was like, like sensationalized. I was there. But there's plenty of people, in like black masks and black, I don't know them. It's like, we're not friends, we're not associating outside of there. So I always see it just more as like individuals and small clusters. Some people are very into it, a little more militant and secretive. I've known some of them just, socially, but, never that deeply involved in it. So I think it's both.
So have you witnessed or overheard some of the more violent acts and rhetoric from people within Antifa?
Yeah, and it just seems like the temperature has slowly risen on it. So I consider myself an anarchist. And, to me, what that means is respect the man, not the badge. It means people have to earn respect. You don't just respect authority because it has a title or a badge. But now, it's like it's turned into something else. And it seems like a lot of people that participate in Antifa or, the protests and, wearing the black mask, it's like their rhetoric or just how they feel about it. They're more violent. They call everyone a fascist. Everyone is a fascist that doesn't agree with them. And, they're like, I've been at a protest recently where they're screaming at people to go kill themselves or, like telling them that they should die. I've just never seen that before. And it's just been in the past couple years that I just feel like the level of threats and violence that they do or suggest it blew me away. That's what turned me off of it.
Have you ever heard anyone explicitly say they're going to kill someone or they think it's justified to attack someone because they're a fascist, for example?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like whether it's people deserve to die or, that they're not, they have no human rights. It's like calling someone a Nazi or a fascist. It's a way to just dehumanize them. You can do whatever to them. You can assault them. It's funny to them. They laugh about it. It's like a sport. It's like they're actually going. Originally, they were trying to bully and threaten like what they would consider right-wing extremists, like Proud Boys or like Christian nationalists, that show up to protests or events. They're bullying them. That's not the target anymore. Now the target is anyone that doesn't agree with them. And so they do threaten people, laugh about it. It's like socially when I'm not at a meeting, I'm just hanging out with people that I know, more and more they talk about acts of violence, they talk about guns or going to gun ranges, and the shit scares me. And I can't believe it that, anyone who's like a reporter or a bystander, they will attack you in a heartbeat. And it's not all of them. It's just usually there's like a more militant group that are hidden in the crowd and they're just waiting for the opportunity to hurt someone.
Why do you think some of these people that you know are arming themselves and going to gun ranges and so on?
It's like the answer when I just question people, and they're very touchy about it. Like if you don't completely agree with them, they don't trust you, they don't want to talk to you at all. Even if I've known people for a while, but they feel as though they're under threat. So it's kind of like, well, we're going to be genocided or put in prison, or Nazis have taken over America, and so we have to act now to stop it. And it just seems strange to me that none of them they're not in jail, they're not being killed, no one is attacking them, and I just don't see how, it's like they fear-mongered themselves into this like ideological box, and that justifies all their behavior. Yeah, I mean, it's pathological, honestly.
That kind of rhetoric and those ideas, do you feel that it's kind of like a radicalization or
Yes.
self-radicalization, almost akin to, let's say, an Islamist group?
Just absolutely. I mean, it's like, to me, it seems like, how is this different than a group like ISIS? It's like, you create this, echo chamber, like this social group. You're not allowed to talk to any outsiders. If you interact with anyone who isn't part of the group, or who thinks differently, then you're out. You're canceled, you're untrustworthy, or worse, now you're a Nazi, or a fascist. And so it's like, it's creating this hyper intense bubble, whether online or in person. And when you only interact with other people that think that way, the radicalization has become really, really extreme.
When Charlie Kirk was murdered and when President Trump was almost murdered, did you see your friends or some of these people you know celebrating those political acts of violence?
Yeah, I think it's an awful thing where it's like, you can see some videos online of people like really celebrating, just people that, I'm acquainted with, they snicker about it, or it's more like, well, he got what he deserved, or, well, they're causing it themselves, or, we can't be upset about, a dead Nazi. I'm like, what? And I've tried to talk to people that I know. I'm like, just imagine, you're normalizing this. You're making it so that level of political violence is okay. How are you going to feel when right-wing people say, okay, we'll do it back to you? It's like they're not actually doing it to you. I don't know how they can't see the hypocrisy in that, where they're making it okay to laugh about it, to relish in the death of someone else, and it's insane. It really is.
ICE members have been attacked over the country, particularly in Texas. There was a shooting where some of them were injured, and unfortunately, people were murdered. Actually, it was immigrants who were murdered, I think, by accident. And they installed anti-ICE on these cartridges. In Portland, we've seen lots and lots of rioting around the ICE facility there. Does Antifa and do people with Antifa ideas view attacks on ICE as kind of justified because these people are fascists?
Yeah, I mean, so that is it. It's the targeting on ICE. It just seems like any level of violence towards them is acceptable because they're just seen as like the Gestapo. They are the fascists. They're the like private army of dictator Trump. And I think that it's like they're not seen as a legitimate law enforcement agency that has like a legitimate legal function, like, the Customs and Border Control. And they don't see it as, they're participating in, like legal actions. They call their arrests like they're kidnapping community members. And it just simply isn't that. It's like if the police arrested someone, that they're not kidnapping them. And so I just think that, there is a place, I'm completely down with like civil disobedience or like protesting, but it's like, ultimately, you need to win an election. You could change a law. If you want to change something, there's a legal process for that. But, they just see that authority or Trump as just illegitimate somehow, even though they legitimately won an election, and that has consequences. So it's not about, do you agree or disagree with like, the deportations that are happening, but ICE isn't out guns blazing, killing people in the streets, or like they make it sound like everyone's going to some kind of Auschwitz death camp. It's just not true, and so it's just the dehumanization. I can't remember where the quote comes from, but they don't kill you because you're a fascist. They call you a fascist so they can kill you. It's just a way to dehumanize people and threaten them. And I couldn't imagine, it's like, whether you agree with what ICE is doing or not, it's like them wearing masks themselves to cover their identity. I bet, they're going to get doxxed, they're going to get threatened, they're going to get followed home, they're going to threaten their families. And when you have people that are just openly saying and acting, in a violent, threatening manner, I would be concerned about that.
Do you worry that some of the rhetoric coming from senior Democrats and some of the media describing Donald Trump as a Nazi, describing the Republicans as fascists, is radicalizing some people towards the kind of violence that you're talking about?
That is what caused it. So the Democratic leadership, it's like, whether it's like when Kamala was running, just, dead saying, well, yeah, Trump is a fascist. What are you saying? Your political opponent is a fascist. And that is the language that they use constantly. Democracy is under threat, even though your opponent won an election, right? It's not like, armed men took over the government. That's not what happened. They won an election and you lost, but, the Democrats, they just constantly pouring gasoline on it and just normalizing, this language, which, has a lot of consequences. It scares people. That's what it does. When you have, like these respected leaders, they're scaring out of, ordinary people, especially young people, and they feel as though, they're under threat, that their lives are in danger, and it's actually not true.
In terms of analyzing the people who are within Antifa or within that movement, is there a lot of mental illness? Are there a lot of mentally unstable people there who could be susceptible to some of these messages and actually act on the kind of violent rhetoric?
Yeah, that's that. You could look at it that way. Like looking at someone like me, it's like, what would I call my type of person? Like, I'm sure you've seen many of my type of people, and it's like, are we like progressives or liberals? I call us, we're counterculture, and often counterculture, because of like maybe some kind of neurodivergence or some quirk of who they are, their upbringing, they don't quite fit in to kind of like a normie society, right? They view life differently. Maybe they don't want to get married, they don't want to have children, or maybe they're not very religious, or they want, some kind of alternative, different type of life, right? And so there's a lot of us, like we have a long, proud history, counterculture. And, we like art, we like music. And, I think that a lot of us, are unusual and, grow up often like isolated from one another. And so when we go to cities like Portland or Seattle, San Francisco, that's where a lot of my people in America gather, right? And there's other places all around the world where a lot of people that are in counterculture, we form our own community. And so that is part of it, right? It's like you are kind of provoking them when you're taking like, police actions or ICE actions in their communities, and they are often trying to separate themselves from, like normie culture or the monoculture, like, and so, when you've said, oh, well, we've all come together in Portland. Portland is one of their towns, right? And so, whether you like it or not, it's like, no wonder they're going to be upset about it, right? It'd be kind of like, let's say we went to like the most Christian city in America, wherever that is. And you went there and you started a satanic temple. People might be upset about that.
So it's almost like you've got these communities within America that have isolated themselves from the mainstream, and that creates a kind of division and perhaps a lack of empathy, maybe on both sides, a lack of understanding of each other.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It's like it isn't just an ideological polarization that's happened. It is like a geographic one as well. That like if you're young and different and maybe gay or just, like a quirky person and you're born in like a religious community in Kentucky, you're probably not going to stay there. Where you're going to come? You're going to come to like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA, places where there's more people like you. You fit in better. And so I think that, it's made it so people have just separated themselves, and it leads to a lot of misunderstanding. Like the best way to kind of get over some of that polarization or prejudices is to live around other people that are different than you, and I think that that's happened less and less, like there, in a lot of the, super progressive or blue cities, there's no ideological variety, right? You're not allowed to disagree. There's only one opinion. And I think the same is true in maybe like a lot of red states, or communities.
Yeah. I guess you've been in this world for a while now,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of political world. Have you seen the temperature rising in terms of the violence? Have you seen that increasing in the last few years?
Yeah. I mean, it's so bad. It scares me, and it's like, I'm someone who's like been involved in it. I love politics. I care about, other people. I'm a social worker. I like helping other people. And to see, often like when CHOP was happening here in Seattle, I was there talking to like unhoused people and just making sure they're safe because the police are interacting with the Black Bloc or Antifa and protesters. And there were unhoused people that I would help get into shelter or, like just making sure they're okay, getting caught in between it. And so I'm more interested in like mutual aid, helping other people, like mediating conflict and not escalating conflict.
Are you worried that any of the people that you know or that you've interacted with could go and commit violence, even murder, against their political opponents?
Yeah. I mean, it does concern me. And it like you were saying, it's like if someone just has like a little extra layer of like, some emotional issues or trauma or, like mental health issues, it just makes me worry even more. They're living in so much fear that is, it's detached from reality, that you never know what they might be capable of, and they will express like opinions or a desire to harm others or an acceptance of like political violence as like legitimate. And it scares me. It scares me to hear that level of anger from someone. And they're serious.
Do they think a civil war is coming?
For sure. I mean, I think that, I think they probably feel like we're just we're in it right now. That we have to oppose, like the other political party, like the Republicans or MAGA, and they have to be stopped no matter what the cost is. And I mean the cost is, the country in chaos where like political assassinations and murder is just okay. And where does that lead, man? It's like if you feel as though your side is so right that it's okay to kill other people or their leaders, at what point do they start doing that to you? And it's just a scary time, and often I feel like even me being critical of it or lightly critical of it, makes me watch my back in this city.